Well, America's favorite Democratic power couple seems to have lost their power. Former First Lady Michelle Obama just launched a podcast that is straight up sinking. It's ranked all the way at 34 on the Spotify podcast chart. And her husband, arguably one of the most popular Democrats of all time, couldn't even move the needle for the Harris campaign. Now he can't get into double digits on a poll about Democrat leaders and their values. Yikes. Steve Ducey, what say you about the Obamas?
Well,
Limit.
You know, how do you think he feels about the big chart over there? It's like when he called, you know, some have suggested that he persuaded George Clooney to write that letter to try to squeeze, you know, Joe Biden out. I think there's been some denials there, but nonetheless, behind the scenes, it was like, well, he's the real power broker. Well, maybe if the Democrats really wanted to get something done, they would have done it with AOC because she's leading the pack, not him.
And that's the point I want to talk about with you, Kayleigh, that AOC is leading the pack on holding the core values of the Democrat Party. I think Obama would be shocked by that and how far his party has moved from the time under his reign.
Part of this is Obama hasn't asserted himself to try to be the leader of the party. I still think he's very popular among Democrats. I think part of this is he is no longer an outsider. He went from the guy in 2000 who couldn't get a floor pass to the DNC, to the guy in 2004 who gave this amazing keynote speech at the DNC, to the guy in 2008 who defeated the Clinton dynasty. He was an outsider like President Trump. But now he's an insider. Now he's the establishment lane. People want something new. They want something fresh. They see AOC as that. I don't think that will work, but they are hungering for a new lane, which is what Trump gave the Republican Party.
And he inserted himself enough, Lydia, to, you know, usher the president off the stage, President Biden, and sort of weigh in and try to campaign for Kamala Harris and the like. So is that enough? Clearly not. Do you see him returning?
Well, you know, there were reports that he didn't really support Kamala Harris, you know, when she ascended to the ticket. So I think that's been part of the fallout that we're seeing here. I'm not really surprised that Michelle Obama's podcast is not ranking well. I hadn't even heard about it until we started to talk about it today, to be quite frank.
Really?
Oh. So I read into it to figure out, what is she talking about? Apparently she's kind of cleaning out the closets. You know, she's talking about how President Obama's not a punctual man. He had no money when she got married to him. And I thought, well, no wonder no one's watching or listening to this. No one cares. People want to know what's coming next. They want to know what the future is.
Give us something juicy.
Yeah. We want something forward-looking.
Well, there was a ramp up to it with high anticipation, and then it didn't deliver, which is why you haven't heard about it. People are tired of dynasties. I mean, Barack Obama to Joe Biden, that was a dynasty. It was 8 years and 4 more years of the same, only less awake. And then anything beyond that point is you're bringing back the dynasty of Barack Obama. I just don't think that that's where people are right now. And to your point, Lydia, yes, it is about next, but it's also about different and generational. I mean, the two ends of the spectrum are Jasmine Crockett, tied with Obama on that big graphic, and AOC. That's a generational shift. And so it is new, and it is next, and it is younger. But it's also maybe financially different, too. I mean, you're talking about some pretty rich people in the middle of that wall there.
Yeah.
The one who's leading, though, is a former bartender.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.